and 6 seconds. I'm sorry for the rush. You guys ready to go?
Let's do it.
Good.
Yeah. Awesome, guys. Thank you very much. Sorry. Welcome, everybody. Thank you very much for joining this BOMA Regina webinar. We're just going live right now, and I'm just going to give it a moment or two, as I think there's some people coming in still, and I want to make sure that we give everybody a chance to sort of settle in. So bear with us for, let's say, 1 minute or so, and then we'll get going in earnest. Thank you for joining us today. Dead air is a bad thing, so I'll just keep repeating myself as people join to say that we're going to begin in about a minute or so, just to allow people to attend. I see there's already about 30 people on the line, which is fantastic, and the numbers are rising. We just broke from 29 to 30, and so that's not counting those of us on the phone here. Maybe I'll start. Now that we're at 12:01 Saskatchewan time. I almost said 2:01 because I'm in Toronto. I'm Benjamin Shonwald, and I'm the president and CEO of the Building Owners and Managers Association of Canada, BOMA Canada, and we're super proud to be partnering or to be involved in this important BOMA Regina event today. As many of you know, BOMA Regina is one of the 11 local associations or chapters of BOMA across the country. Collectively, we comprise about 3,600 members, and we're here to serve you, and today is one of the ways we're going to do so. Without further ado, I think Lisa Pan, the chair of BOMA Regina, is having some technical difficulties. I can relate because I had a few getting on myself, so Lisa, we hope you'll join us at some point, and maybe she can say a few words at the back end. But since we're already a couple of minutes in, I'm going to propose that what we do is I'll ask our guests, these eminent gentlemen from Saskatchewan, to introduce themselves in turn, say a few words about who they are, and then we're going to jump into the content. So I'll just go in the order of my screen. Blair Forster, could you please introduce yourself?
Yeah, thank you, Benjamin, and welcome everyone. My name is Blair Forster. I'm the president of Forster Harbour Development Corp. And I've spent a little over 30 years now developing mixed-use, large-format commercial projects in Alberta, Saskatchewan, and Manitoba. The asset class that is our primary asset class in those projects is retail. And happy to be here and share my thoughts with you today.
Thanks so much, Blair. That's great. And you're based in Regina, aren't you?
We are based head office in Regina, correct.
Okay, great. And John, I think you're based in Regina as well, aren't you?
Yeah, sure I am. John Hopkins, singer-songwriter, played for the Beatles. No, I didn't. John Hopkins, I'm the CEO of the Regina District Chamber of Commerce. Been doing this for 20-some-odd years, and look forward to today.
Thank you, John. And while I was trying to get on the phone, I was missing a song that John was thinking to keep Blair and Kelly entertained in the interim. Kelly, I think you're up in Saskatoon, aren't you? Why don't you introduce yourself?
Yes, my name is Kelly Dizowich. I'm a partner with MNP. Specialize in the real estate and construction east and lead up the we'll say the north half of the province for our firm in that space.
Awesome. Thank you, Kelly. And MNP is a super important partner of BOMA Canada at the national level and a big sponsor of ours. And with our conference coming up, your firm is a big participant as well. So I want to express on a national basis our gratitude at MNP.
Thank you, Benjamin.
For sure. And Lisa, I understand that we can hear you now. Do you want to say hello, Lisa Pegg, Chair of BOMA Regina? Maybe Lisa's still not able to if you're talking, Lisa, we can't hear you. But I've got my messages coming in, so I'm sure that my colleagues from BOMA Canada who are behind the scenes helping us will text you when you're ready. In the meantime, a few minutes past the hour, now that we've introduced ourselves, we're going to jump into the meat of our program today. The four of us, and Lisa and Kale, and I think plus my colleague Suhala from the BOMA Canada office had a prep meeting about a week or so ago, and we talked about all these different issues. And the clear consensus among the three eminent speakers today is that there's only one issue today, And shockingly, that issue is called coronavirus or COVID-19. It's permeating everything we do in real estate, everything we do in the whole wide world. So our idea today is to focus deeply on that issue and get some thought leadership from the three gentlemen here. I have a series of questions that I'm going to ask them over the next, little less than an hour. But please do go into the chat or the question and answer. You have both options, and I'll keep my eye on both the chat and the Q&A box. If you want to pose questions to any of them, and I'll do my best to juggle those as we go. If you want to pose questions on topics other than coronavirus and commercial real estate, feel free. And time permitting, I'll try to squeeze a few of those in at the end. But our focus right now is going to be on COVID. And I'll just say finally, please don't be shy. You can just type your question in. You're not going to be in the video, and we'd love to keep this as engaged as possible with our audience. So with that in mind, I'm going to put the very first question to Kelly from NMP. Kelly, COVID is a short-term challenge, it's a medium-term challenge, it's a long-term challenge, and that's not telling us anything new. But we can't really think about the medium and long-term challenge until you build. What do we need to do to get through this moment? What do firms in our industry need to do to survive?
Yeah, so I'll just kind of, I'll start at the top, and you did mention short-term challenges and what some of those are. If I could sum it up probably in one word, it's probably uncertainty would be the word I would use. The impacts, as I don't need to preach to this industry, they've been felt wide, they've been felt deep and significant across the real estate sector, whether it's the office space, retail, industrial, multi-unit residential, they've been felt. There's been changing health and safety regulations, recommendations, the measures that people have to put into buildings, those building user interactions, things like physical distancing, partial or total office closures, changing capacities in buildings. There's just a myriad of short-term issues on that. But the one main one that I'll kind of talk on is the one that I see on a daily basis with the clients that I work on, and that's specifically, the financial impact and specifically the cash flow impact in the short term. So, every business again has been impacted on the cash flow side. On the revenue side, we've seen large amounts of rent deferrals, non-payments, renegotiations. We've seen many commercial spaces seeing probably decreased demand and potentially decreasing lease rates. Owners selling properties, there's been lots of different impacts on that. We've seen some pockets where things have been better actually through this, and we've seen lots, we say more so where the prices are decreasing and so is the activity. In terms of operational costs, we've got higher operational costs dealing with things like cleaning and sanitation, all the distancing stuff that's put into place. The capital side, we've seen higher building material costs and delays in delivery of those. Things like lumber, we've seen astronomical increases in price. Buildings under construction, we've seen delays, we've seen changes in schedule, costs of projects, all things affecting the cash flow side of things. But Benjamin, you alluded to the second part, which is probably the most important, is what do you need to do to survive in the short term? And for a lot of people, the word survive is probably that main word right now. And what I would say the most important thing from the financial aspect in this time is really to understand where you're at. Getting a full understanding of your current financial position and what that's going to look like in the short term. So what does that mean? One of the biggest tools I've worked with clients and in the industry is building cash flow models, so that you fully understand, what that timing of the cash flow, the amount, what's your cash requirements, what's your cash burns through that, what's the impact of a vacancy or a non-payment or a delay in a sale. You can't get to the point where you fully understand that until you build out a robust cash flow model and really understand what those impacts are. A couple other things I'll touch on quickly, adopting, what I'd call a lean enterprise mentality. It doesn't mean slashing spending across the board, but really it's a justification of your spending, whether that's, starting on a zero-based budgeting project where you're basically building and justifying your expenses on the way up. Example that would be, evaluating your property tax expense, for example. For many, that's the biggest expense, and with Saskatchewan being in an assessment year, I think that's another one that you can look at in depth. Looking at your competitive analysis, where do you fit in your market, and what is your competition doing? What are you doing? And what are your customers or tenants, what are they doing and what are they requiring? And what's your value proposition to them? Because in the end, that's what it is a value proposition. Then just a couple more really quick things I'll touch on, immediate, simple things, as I would say, but things that, everyone should be looking at is the government programs available. You've got your wage subsidy, the new rent subsidy program, which I think there's a lot of people hopeful it'll be much more successful than the previous one. The CEBA loan programs, they've announced another, $20,000 loan program for those significantly impacted on top of the original $40,000 one. And then one of the biggest ones is working with your lenders or suppliers in terms of having that open communication with them. If you went through the process and have an in-depth knowledge of your cash flow and what that's going to look like in the short term, banks and suppliers are going to be much more willing to work with you if you know exactly what you're asking for, and in terms of timing, amount, and they're going to have more comfort that you've spent the time to fully understand where this is going as well from your side.
That's great. Well, tons to unpack there. I mean, that was a very comprehensive answer. And yet, do Blair and John want to speak to anything that Kelly said?
I just think Kelly can answer all my questions now too.
Benjamin, I think in addition to what Kelly mentioned, I think the retail community and has been pretty quick to adapt to the new requirements for sanitation and PPE and creating an environment inside their stores where they can protect the consumer. But I think what's lagged in this COVID recovery is reinstating consumer confidence. We can spend as much money as we want in these retail operations, but if no one's walking in the door and actually buying anything, we still have a huge problem on our hands. And I think from my perspective, anyways, this COVID is a tale of many markets. And in Saskatchewan, we sidestepped a health crisis for the most part so far. Anyways, we'll have to see what this second wave brings for us. But we still had the same economic impact on our community, and so it'll be interesting to see what role we all play, what role our industry plays, and what role government plays on giving the consumer the green light to actually start getting on with its life again, which is going to be required to keep our industry solvent.
That's a great point, Blair. John, please go ahead.
Just a couple of comments, just to build off of what's already been said. One of the things that always fascinates me is that there are a lot of businesses out there that have not applied for some of these programs that are out there, which is shocking to me. Including the city of Regina has a program that's out there, and I've gotten a call from them on a number of occasions. These are grants too. It's free money. It's not a loan. It's a grant, and people aren't applying, and that just blows my mind. The other thing, just to build off what Blair said, one of the things that we sort of took advantage of, well, I wouldn't say advantage of, one of the things that we did early on was mount a campaign, sort of a shop local type campaign. And it was called Together We Stand, and it was a local thing that we did here in Regina, and then all of a sudden it became a provincial thing. And it's really important to tell people to come back and shop with the businesses that are here, as opposed to doing it, everything online, and whether it's gift cards or whatever it might be. And in the next couple of weeks, we'll have one for sort of the restaurant industry, which has really been hammered in a lot of ways, particularly if they don't have takeout or drive-through, that type of thing. So we're going to work on that. I think that's really, really important. And consumer confidence is really the key. And if we don't have that, we're in big trouble.
Maybe typically it's going to be my job to ask you guys questions and guide the conversation, but I can't help but throw in a plug for a new program called the Post Promise, postpromise.com. BOMA Canada is a founder of that, and some of the larger national real estate firms are as well. It's a free program aimed chiefly at retailers, but it can also be for office tenants as well. where the merchant simply makes a promise to abide by 5 key elements of COVID hygiene, if you can call it that. Things like physical distancing, hand hygiene, wearing of masks, and so forth. And you can download the posters for free. I've seen them here and there in my own travels. You can pay $10 for a kit. It's not verified. It's not complicated. It's a way to indicate to your customer, hey, the owner, manager, vendor in this store gets it and is making a public declaration that you can enter the store with some degree of confidence that you'll be met with somebody who understands this, to Blair's point. Yeah. Great, and I see there's a comment here, but I'm a bit fuzzy in my talking. I hope it's okay. I'll do my best to be as clear as I can be. Anybody else want to speak to the short-term challenges? Or should we move on to the longer term? Okay, so if we cover the short term and the sort of survival mode, and it's shocking that 6 months in, we're still talking about survival. And I think that probably is absolutely a reasonable description of what many aspects of the economy are facing. Let's now move our focus, gentlemen, to the long term. And I don't only mean long term, as in what happens after the short term, the medium term. I mean the transformational changes, the things that are happening, that will happen, you think, in our industry because of COVID. And I see Lisa's joining us right now. I'll be here in a little bit towards the end. But those things that are happening that will stay with us forever because of COVID. So starting with you, the office sector. What are the transformational changes that you see happening there? As I think you're sitting in your office, I believe.
What we look at in the office sector so far, what we've seen is, increasing vacancy rates. And I think what longer term, I think that what we're going to see as a result of COVID is there was a question about how well work from home would actually be. There was questions about productivity and all of that. And what we've seen is there is productivity, and I don't think that's going to go away. I think a lot of people will come back to the office, but I don't think that everyone's going to come back. And the fact that the technology is here now that we can have a meeting like we're having today without leaving your home. I mean, you could be, could be in pajamas almost with a suit jacket on. Not that I am, and still be a part of these meetings. And I don't think that that's going away anytime soon. In fact, I think we're probably going to see more of that. Well, the challenge, I'm not sure across the country, but the challenge that we have in downtown Regina right now is there's a lot of the office sector is not back to work yet. And, I'm hearing, after Christmas, that type of thing. And, the office sector in Regina is really the anchor of the downtown. There's no question about that, I don't think. And it really drives retail. It drives the food sector. It drives a lot of things that are going on downtown. And I know I just talked to somebody in Toronto today, and he said the same thing's going on. Like it's like almost like a ghost town. And so, hopefully we'll get resolve this stuff very soon. But I think longer term, I think some of the things that we've seen as a result of COVID are going to continue on, as well as the cleanliness factor and personal hygiene, all that stuff. I'll stop there.
Sure. Kelly, Blair?
Yeah, you know what? I'll jump in and add a couple of comments, and this is more from personal experience, I guess, in dealing with our firm in MNP and what that might look like. The demands for people to work from home are increasing. Is it permanent? That's to be seen. I think there's a learning component of group learning in person through what I would call osmosis that doesn't transmit through virtual programs. So I think we're going to see some of the virtual wane, but I think in terms of what firms are requiring from buildings, that's potentially going to change in terms of infrastructure of IT and just how setups are done. We might see a lot more hoteling of offices where maybe there's not a need for everyone to have a permanent office, and it's more of a sharing, and there's maybe you're in the office 3 or 4 days a week. We definitely know within Saskatchewan even that there probably is some permanent changes. It's just a matter of that to be seen.
Yeah, and I would agree with that. I'm not in the camp that we're going to see a substantial reduction in the requirement for office space. It'll be different. Each community, I think, will react a little differently. If you're in downtown Toronto and you've got a 2-hour commute to get to work, and if that employee can be offered the opportunity to work from home, save 4 hours a day, not pay parking costs, those businesses might be able to offer, that employee a reduced salary and maybe get the same productivity out of them. In a small community like Regina, I don't think that's a trend that's probably going to take hold. The office is a place where you train new staff and you build culture. And that's going to be incredibly difficult to do those two things remotely. So there could be opportunities where it's a hybrid and some people come in 3 days a week and work from home 2 days a week. So we'll see how that evolution happens. But I'm a believer that productivity is going to fall from employees in work from home. And I believe the only reason that it's high right now is that people remember what a work day used to look like. And so a prolonged work from home environment, I think, will have a structural change to all our companies. The one interesting positive that could come of this, I do believe, though, is if when our kids graduated university, if they wanted to work for a tech company out of Silicon Valley, they moved. And there could be a situation that comes out of this and working with our universities to build programs in Regina and Saskatoon to train these students and have them stay at home, get paid in Canadian dollars, and be in a stable society environment, and maybe benefit some of that stuff significantly. So I think there could be some educational benefits that come in smaller markets that could really benefit, Regina, Saskatoon, Saskatchewan as a whole.
Yeah.
That's amazing. I can relate to this.
Can you
hear me, guys? Okay. Can you guys hear me?
Kind of cutting in and out.
Oh, okay. Better now or no? Can you hear me or no? Yeah?
I can.
Okay. Thank you, guys. I can hear you fine, but I couldn't, wasn't aware of a problem on my end. Great answers, and I'll just, sort of add some color to it from my perspective here and there. We just hired somebody in our little organization of BOMA Canada who we haven't met yet. And we have a co-op student as well, who's from India, but studying as a foreign student here in Toronto, who we hired and who I didn't meet until after her co-op term ended, and we hired her on. And it was quite an unusual thing. I had to drop something off at her apartment when she moved not too far from us. Can you guys hear me okay?
Not everybody.
I see that Kelly can't hear anything anymore. To Blair's point about culture, it is hard to grow a culture when you haven't even met people in person. And I can tell you, I miss that deeply on my level, and I'm guessing you may miss it in your companies too. Maybe I'll be quiet for a second. I know my team is working feverishly behind the scenes to try to resolve some of these problems. Please bear with us. It's the live event. Music's happened. Blair, can we turn to you? You've got good audio. You got good video.
I've got good audio.
Why don't you talk to us about, again, the transformational, permanent changes that we're going to see in retail. Over to you, Blair.
Yeah, so retail, inevitably was the hardest hit sector coming through this pandemic. And the way I position it, it was like pressing fast forward on a movie that was already happening. So there was a structural shift happening in retail over the past decade. Obviously, e-commerce and online purchases have been gaining a larger and larger foothold. I think they're still settling in somewhere around 20% of all purchases. But when people were forced to stay at home, inevitably they had to buy stuff, and they turned to the Amazons of the world, and they probably built a customer that didn't exist or potentially didn't exist before COVID. We are a promoter of bricks and mortar retail, and I don't believe that bricks and mortar retail is going away. but those retailers that survive this are going to have an omni-channel approach to the way that they do business. There were some retail failures. A lot of them were in the fashion industry nationally. Those tenants were failing anyways. This just advanced it showcased the cracks that they had in the organization. There were significant winners that came out of this. If you take a look at the grocery stores, the liquor stores, the drug stores, the dollar stores, cannabis stores, experienced a significant spike in sales, and a lot of the food service tenants that were fortunate enough to have a drive-through also picked up market share from other people. But the moving forward, our business is going to have a significant amount of bricks and mortar retail in the pipeline. It already does, but we're certainly taking a look at the operations of our tenants and make sure that their e-commerce platform is viable and growing. What we don't want to do is just fill space with the person that's prepared to pay the rent and find out in fairly short order that they don't have a sustainable business model and can't pay the rent. Interesting. My number one pick to make a big move in the e-commerce platform is Walmart, and that's because it has probably one of the best physical retail platforms in North America. They are taking a look at their stores and reducing the actual footprint of their sales area, but increasing the warehouse component of their shops, and that's to effectively have last mile shipping in neighborhoods. Shipping costs are the number one cost of e-commerce, and the number one complexity of e-commerce. So if you can actually get somebody to not require an item to be shipped to their home and have them actually come and pick it up for free at the store, you then get the opportunity to sell them something while they're there. And I've always said it's online buying, but it's in-person shopping. Online has two components, right? Price and convenience. So the physical retailer is going to have to compete on those with trying as best as possible to match the price, which they should be able to do through recovering that shipping cost, but then rely exclusively on the experience and service, and that's how they're going to compete. There's going to be certain categories of retail that continue to grow. Aspirational luxury brands, for example. If you're going to Kate Spade and paying $2,000 for a purse, I think you want to touch it and feel it. So I think that aspect is going to continue to grow. We're going to see outlet continue to grow. It has some of the same attributes as the aspirational brands, but at a lower price point. Entertainment is going to be a huge sector that we're going to continue to grow. Theaters obviously are experiencing significant problems right now, but they will rebound as soon as Hollywood starts releasing content. And then food and beverage also plays a role in that, and we're going to have to see how that industry rebalances over time. But we're incorporating a lot more service sector and amenities into our projects, and that mixed use element is going to be critical moving forward. The days of the old power center, which was pure retail, are over. We're embedding residential into our projects. We're putting automotive uses into our projects, and that's right from dealerships down to lube shops. We're relying heavily on personal service, so medical, dental, physio, the H&R Blocks of the world. And we're having a large entertainment component moving forward. We have a new movie theater opening December 15th, God willing, in Edmonton, if there's some Christmas movies coming out. So the projects are going to change. The makeup of the tenants is going to change. But physical retail is here to stay. And even the Amazons of the world are opening up physical retail to complement their online offering.
Wow, amazing answer, Blair. I think you and Kelly are giving John Olympus money for the future. Can I be heard right now? And John or Kelly, can you respond to Blair?
Go ahead, Kelly.
Sorry, I can't hear Benjamin at all, so I'm not sure what comment he had made or what the question
He
is.
wants you to respond to Blair and take him on like in Royal Rumble.
Well, that was definitely a very in-depth answer, and Blair obviously has a great in-depth understanding of who his clients are, and as I mentioned in the first part, that's one of the keys to understanding how to succeed through this, is to fully understand who your clients are, or who what your business is. So I don't have a lot of rebuttal against Blair. That was a very good answer, and I would agree with pretty much all of those points.
I'm not even going to touch Blair's answer at all. So I'll just get myself into trouble. But what I will say, from a Saskatchewan perspective, I mean, our economy is really driven by the big three: food, fertilizer, and fuel. And what's really, really important in all of those is access to tidewater. And we continue to have challenges there. And I can't see how we're not going to continue to have challenges getting access to tidewater. And it really, really concerns me that, we're a country that's very, very rich in terms of natural resources, and yet we're really struggling to get to customers. And to think that we're going to continue to rely on the United States, especially right now, is a real fallacy. And I'll stay away from the presidential election, although is there a fall in my head here? That's it.
So let me push this a bit, and maybe I'll trouble John or Blair to translate for Kelly for some reason that you can't hear me. Christmas is coming. That is enormously important for retailers, not only for shopping, for gifts, but for entertaining, for restaurants, for bars, for celebration, for tourism, for travel. It's October 15th today. I don't know how many shopping days there are until Christmas. I guess in the days of online shopping, every day is a shopping day until Christmas. But what are your hopes and fears come Christmas in that period there?
Yeah, I'm worried. I'm worried about Christmas. We were just doing in the office here, we were blue skying the other day and just talking about, just take Vegas and Disneyland alone and add up the number of dollars that haven't been spent in just those two locations, or put Disney World in there as well. We're talking about hundreds of millions, if not more, dollars not being spent in the economy. And then you take that and you go globally just on what people haven't spent just on travel alone just in the last little while. So I'm hopeful that that's going to translate into having some more disposable dollars for people that kept their job for Christmas spending, and maybe that's going to be done closer to home. And I think it disproportionately will be happening online because we're in the middle of the second wave, and we're not going to have a clear line of sight, in my opinion, to a vaccine or anything that's going to give people any more confidence than they have today by the end of the year. So it will be a continued erosion of physical retail sales. John's platform and his group did a great job on trying to reinforce to people to shop locally. But the future of retail is going to be controlling your supply chain. And I'll use Apple or Lululemon as an example. Their physical store is a showroom. It's the experience. It's learning the product. It's getting sold something. If you go home and you buy it online, you're still buying it from Apple or Lululemon. And that's the next wave of retail, is you have to control your supply chain. The department store is done. And selling other people's products, you can buy it cheaper online. So I think that's the next wave for retailers, and they're going to have to embrace that to get sales to support their organizations long term.
Maybe I'll welcome back, Kelly. If you can hear me, we're just talking about the challenges of Christmas in the era of Christmas shopping in the era of COVID. I might break the rules of our arrangement here, because Lisa joined late, so she couldn't introduce at the beginning. But Lisa, you have if I can just break the rules and bring you into the conversation for a moment, and then promise to give you time at the end as we discuss. You've got flow and retail stuff. What do you want to add to that?
Well, our group that we have is at least a lot it has to do with food vendor. And so fortunately, people still eat. The younger people still go out or they do. I was talking to a tenant the other day and skip the dishes has become huge. So they found the first month really difficult. And then surprisingly to themselves, it started to pick up because people still needed to eat. They were scared to go to the grocery store. So they just continued on. There's certainly some other vendors like the hairdressers who have come back, but the restrictions are so high as to the expectation for cleanliness. It's really making it difficult for them. From my group, it's very fortunate, but there's, like Blair said, the people who are already struggling, this is just basically put a knife into their back and they just aren't succeeding. And fortunately, with food, it is going through the internet, ordering your food, and also going to the actual physical location. So they've ended up diversifying with the help of just the industry.
That's great insight, Lisa. Even though you had to raise hairdressers, eh? Kelly, I'm not sure if you're able to hear me. Is there anything you wanted to add?
Can you hear him, Kelly?
No, I can't. I can hear everyone but Benjamin.
Please go ahead.
What's your perspective on and hopes and dreams for Christmas this year in retail?
In terms of hopes and dreams for retail, well, that's a tough question, but I hope we see some strength with the small business. That's in the clients that I deal with, I would say a big chunk of them are the medium and small business, and without some support, those are going to be the massive ones that are potentially failing. So not only do we need help from ensuring consumers are consuming their goods, but it's the the government support and the bank support as well. That's one of the biggest issues. I think those were the ones that the small businesses are the ones that don't have massive cash resources to to get through a pandemic if there's a prolonged second wave and survive a 1 or 2 year time frame for recovery. They're going to need assistance in the short term and through this season.
Any other comments, guys?
Well, I just Lisa made a good point about this food service and Uber Eats and DoorDash and Skip the Dishes, and I think that has also bred a new tenant category that actually has been calling us recently, which are ghost kitchens, which are starting to pop up, and they're relying, they're taking inexpensive space and they're relying exclusively on online delivery, whether it be their own delivery or utilizing one of the food service delivery systems that are out there today. So I think there'll be a little bit more competition moving forward in that category. And, some of these are celebrity chefs that are starting to open up these things. So it could be an interesting, it'll be interesting to see how our traditional sit-down restaurants compete with this new competitor that's kind of emerged through this pandemic.
Maybe I'll just explain.
In addition to that, we were talking about the longer term impacts on I guess a few different sectors, but in the work that I'm doing, one of the biggest things we're seeing a change that I think is going to be continually starting now and into the long term is basically the digitization of every process, whether that's your internal financial process that you've got going within each company, your back end. Your back-end admin work, we're seeing a lot of digitization of that process. You've got more real-time information. And then, even into things like user experiences. Blair touched on a couple of those areas, but, in people or tenants looking for new space, are we going to see more virtual tours and things like that? I think the digitization of that is definitely something that's going to be a long-term impact for everyone.
It's a great point, Kelly. I'm just going to jump in and just, we haven't gotten a question on this, and I'll remind our viewers that you can put questions in the chat or the Q&A box, and I'll sort of field them just to make sure that, to Blair's point, that everyone understands, a ghost kitchen, which is a new phenomenon, really interesting phenomenon, is, if I'm not mistaken, Blair, it's effectively a retail restaurant without a retail location.
Correct.
It's Subway, it's McDonald's, it's fast casual, a little bit higher up, but it's prepared and cooked in a place with no sign, with no customer traffic, and it's simply Uber Eats, bicycles, and drivers, and DoorDash, and Skip the Dishes, a good Prairie success story, coming and going. And I know that one of our partners, Reef Parking, the massive national parking is opening up ghost kitchens and parking garages. And so there's all sorts of different locations for that. Really interesting, perhaps acceleration as a result of COVID.
And the so there's two kinds. There's the one-off where somebody just has their own menu and their own style, and they're opening a kitchen and having it for delivery. And then there's a second wave of these that have just started coming out, where they'll be going to the national chains and saying, we're going to be a Joey Tomatoes, and we're going to be an Earl's, and we're going to be a Chili's, and we'll have your menu. We will cook your menu for you, and we will deliver it, so you don't have to open up a storefront location. That's dangerous for my business, but it is going to be an interesting evolution to see if these will be successful.
It's interesting, your point before, Blair, about how Lululemon or Apple is a showroom for the product. What you're describing is almost like Joey Tomatoes or Earl's is a showroom for the product as well, but the stickiness to go back to the restaurant is your worry.
Correct.
Yeah, interesting. Other comments? Okay. Well, Blair, then maybe you can repeat it for Kelly's benefit so he knows where we are. I'll turn it back to you again. Talk to us for a minute on the transformational long-term changes that COVID is driving in light industrial space.
Yeah, and this is an asset class that we don't do a lot of work in, so we've just kind of nipped around the edges of it. It is something that I think longer term we're gonna try to dip our toe a little bit deeper in the water, but it certainly was the least affected asset class. I believe that we're going to see an absolute explosion of industrial space happening in North America. A lot of that is driven by the distribution network required for online shopping. And again, as I mentioned, a lot of that is going to be focused on last mile shipping in communities, trying to keep that cost down. And when we talk about omni-channel in retail, that's certainly a physical footprint. It's an online platform, but it's also a connectivity to your customers through their cell phone. And this is going to be the interesting aspect where an online retailer can sell you something once, send it to a distribution center, and ship it to your home, and that transaction is now over. Or they can say, we're gonna sell you something online. It's a clothing product, so you may want to come and try it on. So we're going to ship it to the store. You can come in, you can try it on. If it doesn't fit, you can leave it there. But as soon as you cross that threshold, your phone's going to blow up, and it's going to say, oh, the last 5 people that bought that sweater also bought these pants and these shoes, and they're on sale. And trying to drive more sales out of that one purchase. Just a personal experience. We were at London Drugs the other day in Grasslands in Regina, and the lady said, we could have a full-time person at our post office just doing Amazon returns. Full stop. Wow. So e-commerce is not perfect. And shipping to the retail store is going to become a larger and larger component of the puzzle moving forward. So that does play against a little bit of that industrial development on people that have a good store network. But I think the industrial segment is going to experience explosive growth, and I think it's going to be an asset class that everybody should be watching and planning for. I'm hoping in our community that means that we're going to get a little more traction out of the GTH here.
And Blair, do you see, just to put one little question to you before I open it up to Kelly and John, or Lisa if she wants to add anything, shipping to the store, when you pick up at the store, do you see any difference in trends between stores that are located in enclosed shopping centers called the malls and stores that are in big box or open air?
Yeah, certainly there's an added complexity if you have to go in and walk through an enclosed area to get to the store and do that. We only have one enclosed shopping center in our portfolio, and it's a fashion outlet mall in Winnipeg. So most of our stuff is predominantly open air. Smart centers, they introduced Penguin Pickup. I don't know if people are familiar with that, but they have a dedicated location on their sites where it doesn't matter which retailer you've selected to purchase from, that package is waiting in a dedicated location in the parking lot. I don't know how successful that was, but I think you might see initiatives like that moving forward. And I would expect that most enclosed shopping centers moving forward are going to have some location, whether it's in their parking structure or immediately adjacent to an exterior wall, where they're going to have an actual parcel pickup that is dedicated for all tenants in the shopping center.
John or Lisa, anything you want to add? We've lost Ramon Kelly.
The only thing that I would add is that I suspect that I agree with Blair. And, we've already seen Walmart doing that. We've already seen Superstore doing that. It's not surprising that we'll continue to see other retailers copying some of the larger retailers that are out there. I mean, people weren't requiring masks, and all of a sudden Walmart decided it's going to happen here in this community. And then Superstore said it's going to happen. And now more and more, businesses are saying that's what's important now is that we need to, protect people and as much as we possibly can, even though there's a bunch of people out there that figure it's against their rights to wear a mask, which is totally beyond me. But that's a whole other debate that I should probably stay away from, but it just blows my mind that people are like that. Anyways, I'll leave it there.
I think when it comes to these mailboxes for parcel pickup, I mean, it's just, for example, people are having trouble with parcels being stolen off their doorsteps, and they say you can use the post office, but you think, okay, well, I should get it delivered to my work. And so thinking of our office environment, we want to try to refrain from that, obviously, but it's like a concierge service that if the delivery people come and can put these packages right into a mailbox that can be accessible by the employees in the building, and really it's no extra work on our part. They key in their code, they get their package, and then they're on their way. I think it's going to become something we definitely have to think about. It's an extra service in the office environment. And then in retail, thinking of using some of the maybe an empty space, that's the parcel pickup instead of just driving up and parking your car and waiting for, it's different for the Walmarts or the grocery stores where you can have that and they can come out with your cart. But to have a specific location that's just a one-stop area, maybe it's an exterior access that these customers can access, that are all the stores that you have in your location, really makes sense. And I think it definitely could be the way of the future to keep things rolling, to have that storefront still, but offer that extra service.
That's great, Lisa. Thank you. I think a few questions have come in. Kelly, I assume, is audio only at this point. John, question to you, and then I'll move to a question from Curtis in the chat. Talk to us a little bit about the regulatory response to COVID and how it will affect our industry.
Well, I think we've seen a lot of things since the start of COVID in terms of PPE requirements, that type of thing, that have happened. I look at the question that's in the chat box. I think that we're probably going to see more and more of that as almost like a competitive advantage, that, here's the things that we're doing to make sure that you're safe. The elevator one's an interesting one. Not exactly sure how that will work, but, those are the types of things that we're probably going to see as an output from COVID, even when we get, a cure or a vaccine. I think that we're going to continue to see this focus on health and safety.
Comments from Blair, Lisa, or Kelly?
We haven't yet done anything from an HVAC perspective to augment our traditional systems. I would expect we would react to this if it became regulatory, or if tenants were requiring it or demanding it. Right now, I know there are some of our retailers using HEPA filter ionization within air circulation in their store, but not necessarily on the HVAC unit on the roof. Elevators is very interesting because I think is 22 stories our highest building in the city. When you're in downtown Toronto with 100 stories and employees wanting physical distancing to get to work, I'm not so sure that if we don't see a meaningful move in a vaccine in short order, that they're not going to have to go to 3 8-hour shifts a day in order to move people up and down and into the space safely if they want to reopen their offices. And then I see the third question, is anything being put on hold for our new builds? And I don't have any real wood around me, but I would knock on it to say we've lost one land sale, but we have not lost one transaction through COVID that we had signed before COVID. And I think that's a testament to the retailers having a much longer term vision or longer term view and looking past COVID and saying that we still need to grow our companies and our business moving forward. So we haven't. We've had great support from our lenders on new construction, which is wonderful. But where the lenders kind of dropped the ball was they did give some temporary concessions on deferring interest payments during COVID, but they added them onto the loan, and so they're getting paid interest on interest. So the lenders are the only group that are going to come out ahead from COVID.
That's awesome. That's funny. We have about 8 minutes left, and so I'm going to move towards the final two questions. But I'd be remiss if I didn't mention. I think we just lost Kelly again. Oh, there he is. If you didn't mention at the BOMA Canada website, maybe on the BOMA Regina website as well, the Pathway Back to Work document, 60-ish pages for property managers about things like elevators, HVAC, washrooms, signage, go on and on and on, deliveries, and we're very, very proud of that document. It's available for free. So I encourage everybody to go and download their copy in English or, if you like, French, right there. Let's move to a few lightning round questions, and then I'll turn it over to Lisa to wrap us up and take us home. Blair, John, and Kelly in that order, so Kelly can have the benefit of your answers and not my question. What's the good that's come out of COVID? We spent 45 minutes talking about the challenges. Give us something positive that you've seen in your industry or your life.
Okay, so I'll be very quick because we're running out of time here. I think Kelly touched on it in his opening comments. The good is that all of the tenants that occupy space in our projects have had to triage their operations and look at every single aspect of it and make sure that they're as lean as possible. And so I believe the tenants that have done that properly are going to be much stronger coming out of COVID than they did going in.
Very interesting answer. John?
Real quick, I would say that the use of technology is something I think that is good that's come out of this. And the fact that people are paying far more attention now to personal hygiene, that type of thing, will help us, with flus and colds and all kinds of other things.
Cool. Kelly, if you can hear me?
Kelly? What's good? What's good that's come out of this?
I don't think Kelly can hear us. Okay. Well, we'll go to the next round, and maybe Kelly can join there. The last two questions that I'll put to each of you, I'll give them both of you, and I'll let you answer them both at the same time. Same order of Blair, John, and hopefully Kelly. What keeps you up at night, and what gets you out of bed in the morning? Blair?
Okay, up at night is the risk of another mandated shutdown through a second wave. That would decimate our economy, which I'm sure maybe as many as 25% of our retail community will not be able to rebound from. Certainly our local retailers will not be able to work through that. And then my second up at night is continuing restrictive federal government policies that are going to be negative to our energy industry in Western Canada. That's the backbone, one of the backbones of our economy, and we need there. What gets me up in the morning is even though I own my own company, I work for the bank, so our lenders still want to get paid. So that gets me up in the morning. And just from an excitement perspective, this is an inflection point in our industry. When a lot of people are running from retail as an asset class, we're charging in, and we want to be on the leading edge of what this industry is going to look like for the next couple of decades.
It's funny, Blair, how the thing that gets you up in the morning could keep me up at night. John, go ahead, please.
Very similar. What keeps me up at night is really, I think that we're probably going to see an even worse 2021 in terms of bankruptcies and closures, that type of thing. That scares me in terms of what we'll see, but I suspect that that's what we're going to see once the subsidy tap gets turned off. And what gets me out of bed in the morning is I really believe in what we do as a chamber in terms of trying to provide people the help that they need to try and get through this. And that's really, really important, I think.
Awesome answer. Kelly is putting his answers in the chat, so I'll encourage everyone to see he's got the good there already, starting with the glass half full, and I guess we'll get the bad momentarily. Gentlemen, thank you. I'm going to turn it over to Lisa in just a moment to take us home, but I want to thank you very much for allowing me to moderate this discussion live. And here is a good example. Right now, we are living a good example of why people must come physically together, because through no fault of our own, we've had a few challenges today. So I think this is a wonderfully rich conversation, which even demonstrates the need for the return of the office, the return of the retail and so forth. I want to invite everybody on the line, if I may, before I get to Lisa, to join us in 13 days for the National BOMA Canada Conference, BOMEX. Go to bomex.ca right now. The cost is around $400 or so to join and learn more for certain categories. Dr. Jane Goodall herself is our headliner, coming in from London, England, live. Ask her questions. We've got Dr. Joseph Allen from Harvard University, who wrote the book called Healthy Buildings, and other keynotes. We have an executive roundtable of extraordinary leaders, focuses on smart buildings, sustainability, climate change, and equity, diversity, and inclusion. COVID will be a big part of that conversation too. And of course, our Toby Gala, an amazing trade show with amazing Canadian technology vendors. So please join us at the BOMEX in 13 days. I want to say thank you again. I really know Regina pretty well. Grew up next door in Manitoba, and I look forward to coming back to Regina in 2021, all being well, and meeting with many of you then soon. Lisa, over to you.
Thank you. Sorry about the technical difficulties to start out with. I was doing a bit of a panic behind the scenes here, but Victoria managed to get me back online. Had to change browsers, but it all ended up working out. Well, thank you so much. That was very informative. It's enlightening, and it was a great COVID discussion. And I'm sure we could talk about it for hours. And so I appreciate that. Thank you so much to our panelists, Blair Forster with Forster Harvard Development Corp., John Hopkins with the Regina and District Chamber of Commerce, and Kelly Diswich with MNP, for sharing your expertise and different points of view. Very much appreciated. Thanks also to Benjamin Scheinwald with BOMA Canada for guiding the discussion today, and the BOMA Canada crew that has worked behind the scenes with us to make this possible. A donation to a charity of choice will be made on behalf of each of the panelists and the moderator as a thank you. Much appreciation to all. Before we go, I wanted to let everybody know as well that all attendees today have been entered into a draw for a $75 Cornwall Centre gift card. Thanks to our sponsors, Cornwall Centre and Cushman Wakefield. And the winner of that gift card will be notified tomorrow. I would like to thank you all for attending today's State of the Industry panel discussion event. Next month is our virtual AGM and the voting in of our vacant board positions. So please consider attending. Watch for the details in the upcoming e-news. Thank you once again for attending and stay safe.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Yep.